I am speaking today with the new CEO of BC Hockey. He is a former Victoria Royals general manager and assistant general manager with the New York Rangers. That is Cam Hope. Cam, how has the new position been in this unique time we're living in?
Hey, Zach. Yeah, it's been any kind of change is weird, and it's been a weird time for all of us in hockey, as you know, and actually all of us, whether you're in hockey or not. So it's hard to categorize, what branch of weirdness it is to also change careers or jobs at this point. But anyway, it feels good. Here in the new offices, or new for me office in BC Hockey, getting to know some new people. It's kind of nice to take a breath after kind of what is becoming a very long hockey summer.
Yeah, I mean, this is the longest summer I think we'll ever have, and it's just keeps getting extended into winter. I mean, it's been snowing here in Calgary, and the summer is over. But let's turn back the time before we get started about what your plans are for BC Hockey. Such an interesting journey you've had. You graduated from the University of Alberta in 1998 with a degree in law. And you worked as a lawyer for many years before joining the New York Rangers as their VP of hockey administration, as well as research and development. And I guess the question there is, how did that opportunity come up? And what was your involvement with hockey before you decided to join the Rangers?
Sure. It's a long story. I don't know if you've got all those hours, but in a nutshell, the way that I ended up working in hockey management was really very, very, very lucky. I went to law school, as you know. I had done some sports work as part of my law practice. I had done some work for the Canadian Football League Players Association, for instance. But my practice was mostly a litigation practice. And I also had some exposure to some hockey, a bit of a nepotism angle to it as well. My wife, who was also a lawyer, ended up working for the ownership group of the Edmonton Oilers, ultimately ended up working for a time with the Oilers. So got to know Glenn Sather that way, both professionally and not professionally. So when Glenn ended up in New York, fast forward to what seems like just a short time ago, but is a long time ago. It's around 2004. There was a long lockout in the National Hockey League, and the league emerged with a lot of new rules and a collective bargaining agreement and a salary cap and all that. And that was a great day for all of us eggheads. That was then that NHL clubs really started to ramp up, having people with law degrees, having some exposure in sports law in particular in their front offices. And it was right place, right time. And the rest is history. And it's been wonderful. But I don't kid myself. It was a confluence of lucky events for sure.
Well, you put yourself in the right position, and that's life. A lot of it is just getting lucky, knowing the right people and having those connections. But I mean, you say it's luck, but you were with the Rangers from 2004 to 2011. Again, you started as the VP of hockey admin, and then you were in 2007 promoted to assistant general manager. So clearly it's not just luck, it's also hard work and a lot of skill going into that. Now,
yeah, that's true. Absolutely.
What did you learn the most when you were with the New York Rangers?
Let me tell you, the next step in the journey was really mentorship. Working with Glenn Sather, who a lot of people don't know, he's sort of a legendary figure. But when I started with the New York Rangers, Glenn Sather was there, and Don Maloney was the assistant general manager. And those guys were incredible mentors who had a very clear vision for what they wanted people in the front office to do. Be the very best at what you can be. Do in your lane, be the very best in the league at it. But in addition to that, be curious, get out. If you want to learn more about this aspect or that aspect, get your feet wet in scouting or player personnel work, be around all the time, learn everything. And there's no boundaries on that. And, just as long as you're doing your job, you can expand your role as much as you'd like to. That was just a breath of fresh air. And it gave me an opportunity to go out there in what turned out to be, it feels like a short time, but it was 7 years in New York, just learning everything there was about it and enjoying every second of it. But if not for that mentorship, if I had been pigeonholed into sitting in the back doing contracts and arguing at salary arbitration hearings, it would have really restricted my ability to learn.
Well, I think that segues nicely. I actually talked to a protege of yours, Grant Armstrong, a former general manager with the Brandon Wheat Kings, current scout with the Tampa Bay Lightning. I had mentioned that I was talking to you this week, and he talked about, I asked him, what did you enjoy about Cam working with him? And he said that you were able to communicate clearly and effectively your vision and the steps that you were going to take to help the team get to where they needed to be. So going from that being the mentoree to the mentor role, what's your outlook on being a leader of an organization?
Yeah, really loaded question. You know what it starts with, though? It starts with taking the position that you're here basically to serve the organization and the people that are working around you. If you do that, if that's your starting point, then it becomes pretty easy to start to articulate your vision. And then if you surround yourself with people that are exceptional, and I've been extremely lucky with that, both with the Rangers and obviously with the Royals, it feels frictionless. I know it isn't. I know there's more thought put into it. And you're right. You have to communicate. You need to be a collaborator by nature, I think. You need to be able to figure out what people's strengths are and what they need in order to succeed, and to encourage that, keep those positive feedback loops going. But mostly it's the people's act. It really is. If you get good people that share the vision, it's like trying to push a snowball downhill instead of uphill. It just works.
And when you got to the Victoria Royals, you obviously got the right people there. You were there for 8 seasons. Every single season was a winning season. In 2013-14, you were named the Executive of the Year for the Western Hockey League. When you had that job opportunity come up, what was the challenge of going from the professional level where you're dealing with multi-million-dollar contracts to the Western Hockey League level where you're dealing with, most of the time, the parents of the players on your team? How's that transition, and how long did it take for you to understand the landscape of the Western Hockey League?
Yeah, it's funny. In some ways, it was an enormous change. In some ways, it wasn't. I mean, hockey is hockey. Let's face it. And when you show up in the morning to the rink, whether it's in the Western Hockey League or the National Hockey League, the rhythm of how things go, what your equipment manager is doing, what your athletic therapists are doing, what the players are doing to prepare, what the coaches are doing to prepare, what the issues in the front office are, selling tickets, keeping the fans engaged. It's all exactly the same, but at a different level, obviously. And, there are much fewer number of Ferraris in the parking lot. That was a big one. But except for that, the rhythm of it is about the same. I'll tell you one thing, and this is an absolute truth that I tell everyone who isn't familiar with the Canadian Hockey League and the Western Hockey League in particular, is that the level of thought that's put into things that are happening in the league and the amount of attention that's paid to detail at all levels, from the team all the way through the league administration, is exactly like the National Hockey League. And I actually found that surprising, to find out that the infrastructure in place and the amount of care and thoughtfulness was essentially identical. And the work was as hard because the competition is as stiff, just on a different scale in terms of money. Yeah.
And that's the one big difference. These kids, they're working towards to get that money. And then when you're dealing with the guys who've already got it. Now, Cam, when you were with the Royals, so much success. You guys obviously, unfortunately, didn't reach the pinnacle that you were looking to get to, but you've left a legacy and a culture there that's continuing on to this day with Dan Price. But when you look back on your time with the Royals, what do you think is your legacy with that club?
Yeah, it's hard to say. It was such a young franchise in Victoria when I got there that we'd only been in Victoria 1 year. I hope that what it is that I was able to kind of lay the groundwork for what should be a successful franchise forever and ever. Because Victoria is really a terrific hockey city. It's wonderful. The facility is wonderful. The fans are great. They deserved Western Hockey League hockey, and it was great that they got it back just before I arrived. And I think looking back, without having a championship banner to hang, unfortunately, I think, what we were able to establish, and just in terms of, people always say culture, that sort of thing, but really just the stability of the franchise and making it relevant on the South Island. And I'm really gratified by that. I still walk down the street in Victoria and people stop and, want to talk about a particular game or a particular playoff series. And that kind of engagement in the community is the reason that we're all doing this. And to have helped establish that in the first, infant years of the franchise in Victoria feels good.
I'm sure people stop you on the street too and ask you why I didn't trade that player. You did trade that player. Away from the rink, I thought this was really interesting. You have a law degree. You're very meticulous. You're an exceptional leader, but you're also essentially a race car driver and a performance driving instructor as well. How did you get into that, and what do you enjoy about it?
Yeah, that feels like a past life at this point. My father was a stock car racer, and loved being around cars. And I grew up around race cars and traveling around Western Canada with the racing circuits as a kid. And when I had an opportunity to do some racing myself, take some training, do some driving, I raced professionally for a few years. I took the opportunity to do it, but it was. It's one of those things I'm glad I got out of my system. I don't know if my bank account could have taken it much longer.
Well, now you're with BC Hockey. You've got this exciting new opportunity. Obviously, right now, we're in a very unique time in that we're getting new information every day and we have to adapt as we go. But when you were looking at BC Hockey, what about the job made you want to take it?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was almost everything about the job as I learned more about it. Like most of us in hockey, we know about all of these provincial sport organizations and Hockey Canada and all of the different stakeholders that we deal with every day and that you deal with every day. But you kind of, you're not sure what they're all about until you look under the hood. During this process, I found out lots. The BC Hockey Board is an extremely engaged board with a terrific vision for how they want to deliver hockey to the people of BC and Yukon. And it's COVID, unfortunately, has given everybody in hockey a chance to take a breath and maybe reimagine what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, and how we can improve. And as you know, the landscape for hockey across Canada, it's our game and everyone loves it, but there are challenges all over the place, in terms of accessibility to everybody in the game and a number of other things. And as I learned more about what the vision was from this board and how devoted they actually were to, look, let's really figure out what we want to do going forward, I just got more and more excited about it. And I have to tell you, the process informed me so completely about what the vision was that I became excited about it, and I would have been crushed if I hadn't had an opportunity to get into this office, because by the time the process was over, I was ready to roll.
Well, I think they're just as happy to have you as you are to be there. I mean, it's quite the hire that BC Hockey's made. When you're talking about the vision and the challenges to accessibility and getting more players involved in the game, what do you think is going to be your greatest challenge as CEO?
There's an initial challenge, of course, of coming out of COVID and trying to make sure that hockey comes back safely and as strongly as ever. But there is a bigger picture thing, and it's something that we talk about all the time. And it's, hockey's supposed to be fun, Zach. It's the reason that everybody does it. And we're in the happiness business when it comes to that. And adults have, I think, a capacity for gerrymandering the fun out of anything if you give them enough time to do it. So I think this is a real opportunity to figure out what these provincial health organizations and Hockey Canada and everyone is supposed to be doing to make sure that everyone that wants to play hockey has a safe and accessible place to do it and has fun. And start there, see what our strengths are, see where we maybe aren't as strong as we should be, figure out what the barriers are for people that want to play and improve, and just reimagine it. And we have this unfortunate luxury of being able to breathe and do that. And so, we'll see how it goes as we come out of this, but I think it's going to give us an opportunity to do all that and more. And I'm excited about it.
You talk about fun and how hockey's supposed to be fun. What's been your greatest moment in hockey since you've joined from 2004 with the Rangers all the way up until now with BC Hockey?
Wow. Geez. I should have thought about that one. That's a great question. Greatest moment. you always kind of skew toward the more recent. Some of the more recent playoff victories with the Royals, I think, stick because they're more recent. But when we finally won a Game 7 in a playoff series, in the time that I'd been there, we had not won a Game 7, and we had a terrific battle against the Vancouver Giants 2 years ago, and won a Game 7 in what was just, to me, an epic playoff series. Just felt like winning the Stanley Cup, because I never did. So that's if you gave me more time to think, Zach, I might think of one that gets me even harder in the heart. But that one I always remember. Yeah.
Well, I'll say you haven't won a Stanley Cup yet.
Yeah.
Right. Let's not rule it out just yet. My last question for you, Cam. I obviously deal a lot with young players coming up through the Western Hockey League, more from an information and education level of, here's what you need to know about the league. Here are the benefits. Here are the opportunities. When you were in the Western Hockey League, you were dealing with the nitty gritty. You had to have the tough conversations with players when sometimes they weren't performing and they might be sitting out or they might be getting sent down. So for young players coming into the Western Hockey League, as a general manager who's had a ton of success, been at the NHL level, what advice would you have for a 16-year-old player just starting who's going to come in this season in January to start their Western Hockey League career?
Well, I think the same advice that anyone who is thoughtful about hockey can give them. Be who you are. Do the best you can. If you want to be a hockey player, listen and grow, and you're just getting started. Everyone seems to be in a rush to get to the next stage all the time, but everybody goes at their own rate. And as you know, Zach, a third of Western Hockey League rosters are filled with players who were never drafted. An enormous percentage of National Hockey League rosters are filled with players who were never drafted. Everyone develops at their own rate. But more than anything, hockey is a game that you'll play your whole life. I was never able to make it onto a Western Hockey League club myself. I tried, and I ended up playing Junior B, but hockey's been a part of my life ever since, from the beer league guys who won't pass me the puck to working in the sport now full time and everything in between. And, keep perspective. It's something hard for a 16-year-old to do. Keep perspective, work hard, be yourself, make hockey a part of your life. You can't go wrong.
That's terrific advice, not just for a 16-year-old player entering the Western Hockey League, but for any player playing hockey at any level. And that's probably one of the reasons BC Hockey is lucky to have you right now. Thank you so much, Cam. Best of luck as you get going here. Obviously, very difficult start with COVID, but I think you're the person to help navigate BC Hockey through this time.
Well, thanks for the kind words, Zach, and good luck to all of us in hockey. And we'll see everybody back on the ice soon, I hope.